Hey guys, I am Bridget Bruyard. I'm the director of Second Chances Wildlife Center, and I'm here on Wagon Wednesdays as a guest.
Yes, you are. A fabulous guest, I might add. I'm Tara Bassett. So glad to have you with us this afternoon. On this dreary afternoon, Wagon Wednesday today is not sunshine and rainbows, and we're not outside enjoying it as we typically do, but
That's true.
We came inside to, thank heavens, actually, to Dr. Rusty Gailor's beautiful office here at New Cut and 3rd Street Road. We're very grateful to him for giving us shelter from the weather, so to speak, to talk about this tragedy that has occurred Monday morning early at the Louisville Llama farm over by the zoo. Mm-hmm. And there's been a whole lot of rampant social media speculation about what happened. And, you know, everybody's pointing a finger, and mm-hmm. the truth is nobody really knows what happened.
True. Social media is a tough venue.
It's very
People
scary.
People are brave to post things on social media.
Yeah.
People are not always accurate with what they're posting on social media. But it's also a good venue for good information, so you have to weed through it.
And so I have been weeding. I have been weeding a whole lot. And weeding through Nextdoor, weeding through Facebook, weeding through Instagram and Twitter, and talking to people in the rescue community, mm-hmm. and people like you who are wildlife experts. I mean, my God, you've had your own nationally broadcast television show, so you are an acknowledged expert. We also have, when Dr. Gailor is going to pop in between his veterinary appointments, and he's very kind to accommodate us today, he's going to share some of his experience as a former Fish and Wildlife Commissioner,
right,
which is very important. And Ozzie Gibson is going to be here from Louisville Metro Animal Services. He's agreed to come over and put himself on the firing line, because right now, unfortunately, LMAS is getting hammered because of the fact that nobody knows what's been done here. Sure. Nobody knows mm-hmm. what has killed these llamas. And we should probably get a little background for those of you who might be watching who have not been caught up in the news. The Louisville Llama Farm is a small enclave with a herd of wonderful llama that have been really friends to many children. Mm-hmm. There's a walking path. I have friends whose kids walk back there all the time. And on Monday morning, a tremendous chaos was heard, what was described as dogs barking, very early in the hours of the morning, and the owners came out to find 5 of their 350 to 500 pound llamas slaughtered by some sort of animal, mm-hmm. allegedly, and then a 6th one who died from its injuries that night, and then apparently 2 more who had to be euthanized due to the mm-hmm. extent of their injuries mm-hmm. last night, which is heartbreaking. And
it is, and today is Love Your Pets Day. Did you
know
that? You probably did know
I do,
that.
and I have.
People love their
this
animals
morning.
no matter what species they are.
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, and so what has unfortunately happened is people believe, they immediately go to a bad place, and they want to point the finger and they want to say, this is what happened, this is how it's done, everybody's in a panic, when in fact it's still under investigation. Mm-hmm. And nobody quite knows what's going to turn up, but I'm hoping that when Ozzie gets here, he's going to be able to give us some updates on the status of the investigation. Dr. Gailor's got some really important views. Mm-hmm. But the 2 immediate suspects, we've pretty much eliminated apparently from the equation any chance of it being a cat mm-hmm. or an escapee from the zoo, which mm-hmm. is not possible the way they take care of their animals at the Louisville Zoo.
Safety is their number one priority.
Safety is their number one priority. So that was all thrown out there on mm-hmm. social media. Wolves. There just aren't a lot of wolves running around loose.
No, Kentucky used to have red wolves,
yeah.
and we have overhunted them.
Yep.
And therefore we no longer have them in
yep.
Kentucky, but we used
so
to.
That's a big problem. Mm-hmm. And so now we are down to canine, and the authorities reporting through the various media have said that it is canine in nature, but they have not distinguished between coyote and dog. Mm-hmm. So what we have now is a situation where people are getting into a panic over the coyotes live with us, we all coexist peacefully, to another set of people who are saying coyotes have attacked my dogs, coyotes are running wild all over the city. So nobody knows what to believe. And then there's also that problem of, well, if it was neighborhood dogs who were running together in a pack, then you got a whole separate set of problems. Mm-hmm. So, LMAS is kind of in the middle, mm-hmm. no matter what way you look at it, because they're responsible for public safety as relates to animals. So just from your experience, Bridget, mm-hmm. with Second Chances Wildlife, and you are a sanctuary that takes in everything from small injured rodents to bunnies that I have brought to you, to possums and raccoons, and all kinds of, and larger animals too. Tell me what your experience is with the difference of the patterns of hunting or killing between dogs and coyotes.
Okay. Well, I am definitely not the dog expert.
You don't have to be. We have one of those.
Okay.
We have two of them actually.
Yay. So there's not very many animals that will kill just to kill.
Right.
The vast majority of animals will kill for food, and that does include coyotes. They will kill for food. They don't always hunt in a pack. They hunt alone quite a bit of the time, and their primary staple for their diet are rabbits, especially in Kentucky. When you get outside of Kentucky, they might go for deer a little bit more than rabbits, but here in Kentucky, rabbits would be their staple diet.
Isn't that interesting?
Some mice,
small animals,
small things.
Rodents.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And
Small rodents.
don't they have a great deal to do in the ecological system with controlling ticks?
They sure do. I
Yeah.
mean, they definitely play their role in our environment.
Yeah.
And when you can't just remove one animal from our environment, they are here. They are not going anywhere. And with us continuing to encroach more and more on this wild habitat, they're forced to come in to a closer proximity to humans, and that
Right.
includes all animals, not just coyotes.
Right.
I mean, it includes the skunks, the groundhogs, the possums, raccoons. So we do need to learn to live with them around, and there's certain methods that we can use that are humane. I can't say go out and hug a coyote or any
Right.
other animal. That's
you
not
don't want to
advisable,
approach them.
Correct.
As a matter of fact, we've been advised to stand, raise our arms, shout, stomp, make ourselves bigger.
Sure,
Don't
absolutely.
run away. Don't turn your back. And I think one of the things that is scaring people is, I think ignorance is one of the greatest fear inducers. And if you
Absolutely.
don't know something about a species, I mean, we all pretty much know about dogs. And unless there's something extraordinarily wrong with a dog, you pretty much think you can either get away from it or you can get it on a leash, whichever.
You're exactly right.
And now I'm one
the
of those people who
unfamiliar-
tries to get coyotes on leashes, because I chased a coyote down my street in Crescent Hill
Okay.
with a leash in my hand, thinking it was a large German Shepherd.
Okay. Whoops.
So there's a problem, but with me. And then, of course, the utility workers had a great laugh at my expense, because they were like, "What are you going to do with it when you catch it?" And I said, "I'm going to take it back to its family." What a
Sure.
stupid question. And they're like,
Sure.
"That's a coyote, ma'am."
Yeah.
So, you've got that problem of people not being able to distinguish between the two.
Yes.
And then, what the solution is, I've been told by wildlife experts in the last 48 hours as I've been researching this, that you can't trap or hunt coyotes because it actually causes proliferation.
Well, you're eliminating one competitor for their food source. So there's more shelter and there's more food. And that's not just with coyotes. Trapping is not always the solution. My recommendation for any animal issue, if you have a reoccurring wild animal coming into close proximity to your home, check around and see what you're doing to invite it there. Do you have good shelter? Are you feeding an outdoor cat or dog? Because if there's outside food laying around, that is an open invitation for any animal, and they go back and tell their friends, and they're all coming to your house.
Right.
So if you have to feed an animal outside, feed it, let it eat what it's going to eat till it's full, and then remove the bowl.
Okay, so here's one of the big keys right here that we really need to address, and that is dogs should not be off leash in the neighborhoods under any circumstances. As far as I'm concerned, they shouldn't be tied out either, but that's just me. There are laws that govern that as well, but they should be always restrained, whether in a fence, somehow restrained.
And that's safety for humans and the dog.
For
you don't want your
everything.
dog to get hit by a car.
That's right. Or get into an accident or attack someone by,
Absolutely.
accidentally, or have someone cause the dog to be irritated enough that it might bite, because then you're responsible for it. So we've got that issue, and that's the first thing that you should say is your dogs should be restrained. They should be also collared, and they should be tagged, and they should be chipped, and they should be spayed and neutered. But that's a subject for another day. But the truth is, when you get to the discussion about coyotes, you put something on Facebook last night that was very clear, and that was the difference between hunting patterns or killing patterns between what coyotes do and what dogs do. And I'll say right now, neither one of us has been to the Llama farm.
Correct.
We're getting the information that we've gotten from photos that we've been able to obtain. We've also gotten information firsthand from neighbors who live there. I have not seen tracks. I was told by the neighbor that there were no cat tracks anywhere, so that took that out of the equation. There were dog tracks of some sort, canine tracks, and llama tracks. The animals were slaughtered in the barn.
Here's an interesting study that was done. It was done in Iowa, and there were ranchers that were having some problems with primarily sheep and other livestock that are a little bit smaller than llamas. It was a 250 to 300 acre areas that they're doing these studies, about 250 to 300 sheep on the premises, and they put one male llama out on all those acres.
300 sheep.
Yes. So before the llamas, they were losing 11% of their herd annually.
Holy
Once
smoke.
they introduced one llama as the guard llama, it went down to 1%. They were only losing 1% of their livestock.
Were they losing them to wolves or mountain lions or
Coyotes. It was
to
coyotes. It was
Okay.
done for a coyote study. Yes.
Okay.
So they specifically put the llamas out there to protect the sheep because llamas, they just really don't like canines. It's just kind of their nature. They don't. So they would kind of run up in an excited way, and then they could kick
Kill
them.
'em.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely, they can. Yes.
Okay, so then that would, if you were to extrapolate that to this situation, it might indicate that a llama who was under attack could have dispatched a coyote.
I personally am very, very surprised that a coyote could take that many and would take that many. They just, their behavior, it's not conducive with their behavior.
Talk about
Now, I'm
coyote
not
behavior.
there.
Just give us some
Okay.
examples, because
Okay.
we're not doing specific. This is not an interview or a conversation specific to this particular horrible tragedy. It's a general kind of a cautionary tale, so to speak, because
Sure.
we have encroached on animals' land.
Yes.
We have
Yes.
encroached on the wildlife. We have built out our entire county and several counties around it to the point that they have been forced in
Yes,
to
absolutely.
the neighborhoods. So this is a cautionary kind of story to share with you the expertise that I've been able to gather here with Brigitte Brouillard and soon to come Dr. Gailor and Ozzie Gibson, just to share some of the ideas and thoughts that have come up as a result of this. One being, first we should mention, it's coyote mating season.
It is, and all animals get a little ornery
Squirrely.
during, a little
Yeah,
squirrely
little
during
squirrely.
mating season. Yes.
Okay, talk about coyote behavior.
Coyotes, they're a little stealthier than dogs. They're going to come in a little bit quieter, and to my understanding, there was quite a bit of barking going on.
Yes.
And while coyotes can vocalize and do vocalize, it seems like it was a little bit more than a coyote would. It seems like it was a pretty sloppy scene, and that is not really normal behavior of a coyote too. They would get one, and they would be eating on that one. They wouldn't go from one to one and kill them and have such a crazy scene.
Yeah. Here comes Dr. Gailor. Come on in.
How are you?
Why don't you
You've got
just
a nice Sicilian. I've never
sneak
been here.
around?
Oh,
Yeah.
Bridget, with second chance.
Brigitte, Dr. Gailor, come on over here, Dr. Gailor.
Well, I'm still seeing appointments. I'm
Okay,
sorry. I'm
you
not
got 5
doing the best
seconds?
I can.
Sit down.
5 seconds?
Yeah, as long as you've got. I know I've told everybody that's watching already that you're running in and out. We're talking about the behavior of coyotes.
You came in on a perfect
It
time.
was perfect time, and we are also waiting for Mr. Ozzie Gibson to arrive. So hold that thought.
Yes.
Let's take advantage of the former Fish and Wildlife Commissioner, Dr. Rusty Gailor, at whose clinic we are doing this show. You know about the llamas. You have not seen the llamas. You have not been on the side of the llamas,
Right.
but you qualify as an expert in animal behavior based upon. Don't laugh at me. Based upon your experience as a vet and a fish and wildlife officer. Based on what you've seen and what you've heard.
This is,
Talk
of course,
to
is
us.
a terrible thing
It
that
is.
took place, and
It's
anytime
awful.
we have wildlife, livestock, human interaction, we get recipes for these types of things. and
Absolutely. Come on in,
just-
Ozzie. Grab a chair. Grab a mic.
You all keep working, and this is my lunch.
Just eat
It's
and watch.
4 o'clock.
He's got to eat. Good Lord.
No, I'm no expert on animal behavior, but I'll tell you that I've got 40 acres in and around the Jefferson Memorial Forest and deal with coyotes all the time. And, you know, one of the things that many farmers and ranchers use to mitigate coyote interactions is the llama.
Just the same thing.
She said the same thing.
You know, llamas are very efficient at dispatching a coyote, and that's very evident. So in this particular case, it's just very out of character and peculiar if this is going to be indicted as a coyote interaction. Now, I don't know the situation, and animals can react and act very unpredictably.
Yes.
When we get certain situations that come into play, and particularly in an urban or semi-urban environment, circumstances can change very quickly.
Like it's the coyote mating season. We've been talking about that too. And Bridget just said they behave differently during this time of year.
Hormones make us all a little goofy.
Don't they
right?
really?
So it's just a situation that anytime that we have these interactions, and when I was with Fish and Wildlife, we had long discussions about this, particularly with our deer population. And as there is urban sprawl, which is the definition of people moving into more rural and
I just talked
pristine
about that
areas,
too. Yeah.
We're going to get these interactions, and then the animals adapt. And what we're finding is wildlife are readapting back into more urbanized areas.
Yeah.
And animals are always going to follow food.
Right.
So where there's food sources, with the black bear reintroduction, we have to really educate folks how to handle their garbage and things that they never had to worry about before. So wildlife interactions, of course, are something that we have to constantly be relearning and rethinking about. But this is not a typical wildlife interaction in my belief.
So talk to me about the safety things that you know as a vet. Have you ever seen anyone bring an animal in with a coyote injury?
Supposed.
Yeah.
Supposed. Those things, of course,
Alleged, as we say
are
in the biz.
hard to document unless you actually get someone that witnesses it. But
Right.
like, a coyote, they're typically very quiet and very coy, and then very, very, very fearful of any human interaction. So they're going to be very wary.
Yeah.
And around my farm, as soon as they're scent driven, as soon as they scent you or see you, they're gone. And the dogs, my own dogs, are really effective. The coyotes don't come around the house, like that, because of the respect of, I guess, the dogs that I have. And my dogs are never had a coyote interaction with my dog, so it's a situation that we have to be fearful of, but always respectful. But it's nothing that I'm worried about.
Okay, so what would you say to neighbors in the areas that are being affected right now, including my own, where I've told on myself already chasing the coyote down the street with a leash thinking it was a dog? What would you say to neighbors? Don't laugh. Do not laugh. Ozzy laughs at me about that every time.
Yeah.
What would you say to neighbors protecting themselves to do? What steps would they need to take to protect themselves against an incursion should coyotes be in their neighborhood?
So if we get bold animals that have been acclimated to not be as fearful
Yes.
as they typically are,
Yes.
then we need to protect, of course, our small dogs, or those animals that the coyote is going to have a natural aggression against, and so we need to protect
Indoor,
against
outdoor
those.
cats?
Yes. Cats can typically evade coyotes, but yes.
Climbing a tree?
Certainly,
Yeah.
that's something we have to keep an eye on.
Yeah.
And then, while you're walking, if you want, just like, mace, bear spray, anything like that, is highly effective against a coyote, which would be just a very, very unusual interaction. Typically, coyote-human interactions are very, very minimal.
They go the other way.
This is why hunters have such a difficult time getting coyotes. It's not easy. I mean, they really have to bait them in and trick them. The thing, you have to outsmart them.
So what I'm concerned about is this. A lot of people are going, shoot the coyotes, go out and kill the coyotes. Well, isn't that a hard thing to do, number one? And number two, I understand from what I've been reading that when you remove that potential part of the ecological chain, then somehow it causes an increase in it. Explain
Well,
how that
coyotes
happens.
are in fact an invasive species, so to speak, in our ecology, and they are a predator that helps keep other things ecologically in balance.
Right.
we're not going to effectively hunt them.
Right.
I don't think that folks in an urban setting would be pleased with how that tactic would go down.
Yeah, we don't want people
to be-
No,
firing
I
in
hope,
the neighborhoods.
I
Be
hope people
successful.
realize do not open a open fire
But
in a
it's,
neighborhood
it's
setting.
baiting and calling, and it's done late at night, and it's just not something that has an application in an urban setting.
Right.
And then the success rate is extremely low.
Right.
So I don't think that's how you mitigate things. I think you take care of it by simply using common sense, good practices, and then understanding that what exactly it is the coyote is actually responsible for, and not to quickly rush to judgment and blame it on things that maybe aren't its fault.
Well, I can tell you from my perspective, having chased a coyote down a street in Crescent Hill, that there is a family of coyotes that lives at the base of Peterson and Grinstead. There's a family of coyotes that lives over behind the Mary T. Maher Natatorium in the Crescent Hill Golf Course. There's a family of coyotes that lives up at Cherokee. And I'm just saying one each because I know of these individual circumstances. They're everywhere. There's no lack of coyotes in this city.
They're on our property.
They're, and Second Chances has a huge land.
Well, yes, and we're 23 acres, and
Right.
that's an issue that we're addressing too, because we do release some of the animals there. So it's
Right.
just it's a tough balance, and
Right.
you just can't remove them all, because then more is just going to come back.
Right. So the essence of this particular concept that I'm trying to put forth here, and I want to get Mr. Gibson in on this conversation too, is that it is not out of the realm of possibility at this point that anything could have killed these llamas, but coyotes are everywhere. The second question is going to be dogs, and a lot of people are saying they've seen dogs. So let's go over here for just a minute. Ozzy, did you get your food?
I did.
You feel better?
I did. I had some fries and a sweet
God
tea.
love you. You've been on the phone and working on this for the last 48
We have.
hours, and not being able to accomplish a whole lot because
We don't know a whole lot.
you don't know a whole lot. So talk through what you know. Talk through what you know at this point.
Well,
Director of Metro Animal Services, by the way.
what we have to think about here is what is my role.
Yes.
And my role is to protect public safety.
Yes.
Okay, so when we start a neighborhood canvass, because that's the only thing we could do because there's no video footage, we received information last night that numerous people seen coyotes.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody saw coyotes attack them, but that's what they told us.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point yesterday when we released, hey, you need to be on the lookout for this, I did that because I think it's the right thing to do, because let's just say hypothetically that there were a pack of coyotes that chose to do this, and
Right.
we did not inform the public,
Right.
and we knew it.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to wake up the next morning and see something that happened. So,
Yes.
when we went around, we only heard, well, yeah, we've seen a stray dog here or there, but nobody said there was anything unusual when it came to stray dogs. So now, obviously, over the last 24 hours, we have developed some information where there's been several people that have saw up to 3 dogs running in a little clique. So now we're going to investigate that further. So either way, I never, we don't feel as Metro Animal Services we ever said coyotes did it.
Right.
We just said this is all we know right now.
Right.
So as you and I talk, it'd be easy for me to say we don't have any comment. We're doing an investigation.
Which is really frustrating to people because
Very.
everybody wants to know what in the hell is going on.
Yes. So, but to me, since I knew that night that someone had saw so many coyotes, even the zoo, we see coyotes all the time.
Right.
I have to put that out there.
Right.
So now we're obviously, going to update that we're looking for 3 little dogs running in a clique.
No,
And-
not little dogs. They were reported to
True-
be larger
true
dogs,
that,
right?
true that.
Right. Okay.
I meant little
Good.
clique, not
Yeah,
little dogs.
clique. Big
So-
dogs and a little clique.
And then the other thing people don't know is just 10 days ago, we had a lady that informed the mayor's office that she was in the Strathmore Village area and she felt that a coyote went after her dog. Okay, so I can't prove or disprove whether she knows what a coyote is or not, but it was serious enough she contacted the mayor. And throughout the year, every year this time, what's happening with coyotes right now?
It's mating season.
Right, so they're very active. Okay, so every year at this time, we get a lot of calls on, man, I was walking in Cherokee Park and a coyote stopped, freaked my dog out.
Right.
So, our job again there is not to capture or do anything with coyotes, but it's to inform the public.
Right.
Because what I don't want to happen is that your dog runs off the leash to chase the coyote up into the woods, and then a coyote get tired of running.
Right.
And then your little Shih Tzu, which I own, is now now
Lunch.
there could be a confrontation. So
Lunch.
we do a lot of pre-work to just inform people what we're into, as we would when I was at the police department.
Yep.
You know, if we got somebody that we believe could continue to do something, we got to tell people to be on the lookout. You know, I always hate it. You know, as I told you, I never want to say, well, you know, we're working on this. We'll let you know when we find out something, because then something bad could go happen, and that's not right. So.
Okay, so between the two of you, okay, a fairly clear, and we were talking about Fish and Wildlife not having a tremendous reach into Jefferson County at this point, so we're counting on you as your former Fish and Wildlife Commission.
Well, Fish and Wildlife has a tremendous reach into Jefferson County. First of all, there's lots of resources here. We have lots of assets, so I think the physical evidence and the interaction here between agencies, that this is probably not a Fish and Wildlife issue.
So they're leaving it with LMAS.
But that's something that I'm sure that those assets are ready, willing, and able to work with you guys in any way possible. But we have a lot of efforts and things on our website, those kind of things, to mitigate coyotes with Fish and Wildlife. So it's something that I think we've been working with the mayor's office and county government for a long time about educating folks how to interact with wildlife. So I think those resources are there. This just doesn't fit that type of interaction to where I think it'd be kind of in their purview of jurisdiction, but that's up for you guys to decide.
Yeah, I mean, there again, the problem we have, right? Everybody wants answers.
Right.
Not going to happen.
You can't have them.
Not going to. May never solve this.
Right.
May never know what happened.
I hope that's not true.
You know, we just don't know. So we just have to be patient, and when we get leads, we'll follow up on them. And obviously, we're looking for 3 dogs that are in that area. They could be 2 miles away now. We don't know, or they could be back in somebody's yard, and we'll see if that person was to come forward, because I'm sure they have a mess right now. But you know, right now we
you'd think you'd notice if your dog came home covered with blood.
You probably would.
You would think, but you might be afraid to come forward at that point too.
Could.
So there's all sorts of variables that are going to come in there.
Yes.
Very much so. So
everyone just needs to remain diligent
Yeah.
and protect yourself and your animals, and keep your eyes and ears open. And Mother Nature is she's usually pretty repeatable. So if this is an environmental wildlife thing, I think you will eventually discover what happened. If it's a more sociological thing with canines that are owned, then you get the human interaction part of it that leads to more cloaking of some of the evidence. So.
Yeah,
no
interesting.
doubt.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things that mostly I've been interested in knowing is from the perspective of how to tell the difference. If let's just say we had a forensic investigation, which apparently isn't possible because apparently the llamas have been buried. But if there were a forensic investigation, would there be a way to determine, is it a coyote, is it a dog, based upon bite marks? Is there a saliva test? This was proposed by several people who are also in animal welfare. Can you tell the difference?
Coyotes and canines are going to be all different sizes and shapes, so there's not going to be a way to do that.
Okay.
It's more the logical interaction between coyotes and other animals. Traditionally, we're just not accustomed to them attacking in this manner.
Yes.
But we're not really accustomed to that with domestic dogs either.
Right.
So there has to be some circumstance that created this that made the fervor what it was, and like Ozzy said, we may never know.
Well, one of the things that I said when Bridgette and I were talking before you guys got here is dogs should not be off leash, number one, and they shouldn't be running neighborhoods. We saw an example of Tank, the dog who something horrible happened to when he had his head cleaved by a machete, was running loose and was a friendly dog, and everybody thought he was fantastic, but had he not been loose, he may not have been killed. So dogs should not be off leash under any circumstances. They should be collared, they should be tagged, they should be chipped, and they should be spayed and neutered. But when you do have a circumstance like this, it creates a problem for vets, and it creates a problem for LMAS, because people are probably constantly bringing you dogs that don't have any identification saying, can you please tell us how to get the dog home? And down in this part of town, I would imagine there are a lot of those.
I wouldn't say any more than anywhere else. I think folks are typically judicious and good animal and dog owners microchipping has really changed the game as far as reuniting folks with their animals.
Absolutely.
And I think for the most part, animal owners are, very conscientious about that.
We've got a lot more country out here.
There's
too.
always going to be those folks that always do what they always did, and they always get what they always got, right? But I think for the most part, we're trending in the right direction for sure.
Go take care of your patients.
Got to. Thank you so much for your
thanks
time.
for letting us use this room too. It's a lovely clinic, and it's a great big room upstairs, a conference room that Dr.
very
Gailor
much.
is allowing us to use, which is so nice. So I want to talk just a little bit more, if you wouldn't mind. First of all, let me just acknowledge that we've got a lot of folks who are
Just
watching.
a lot of folks.
My gosh, Glenda Adkins, Dan Holler, Barb Bitter, Karen Linder Miller, Sheila Bishop, Sarah O'Callaghan Gray, Tracy Sprouse, Lisa Smalley, Donna Parks, John Ross, Lisa Marie, Aaron Atz, Ian Curtis, Tina Wilburn, and Amy Watterson Hagen. Lisa Marie says, thanks for doing this special report. It's a huge public service. See, Ozzy, I told you it would be, by pulling together experts to present accurate information. And that's what you guys are, you're experts. Bob Moreland is watching, Dr. Francis Weinstock, Kathy Schmidt, Mary Kay Corfage, Ryan Yates, Brenda Jackson. Can you ask an expert about the option of oral rabies vaccination in the Ville? That's a little off the topic, but
I will slightly address that for wildlife.
go ahead
then
and
you
do
can
that.
address it
Go
for
ahead.
The domestic animals, but
Go ahead.
we are very fortunate in Kentucky that we have a very low rabies count at all. There's some
Excellent.
other states that are more prone to having rabies. The wildlife that would be most likely to have rabies would probably be a gray fox, and they're so elusive and so
Yes.
few anyway. Even bats, less than 1% of bats carry rabies. Well, actually, they're
and you
not
get
rabies
bats
carriers.
in at Second Chances
we get
Wildlife,
bats in
yeah,
all the time.
all the
Yes,
time.
absolutely. So, in
So
all
rabies
honesty,
is not as big a concern as people might think.
It is not.
at this
I
point.
still would not go hug any wild animal. I would not touch them. But by
You wouldn't
no
even
means-
let me touch some of the animals when I came out
I
to
know, I'm
visit
so
you at Second
protective. I'm
Chances because you're
ridiculous.
so protective.
Yes,
Kurt
but-
Lawson, Kevin Hale, Darlene Brumleve, Joanne Dale, Keisha Lockard, Jonna Craig, appreciate you, Kelly Stewart, Joy Estes, Michael Fulkerson, Andy Hall, Amber Clark, Tina Powell. And this, Lisa Marie just said, our neighborhood group had a report from the male person, you got this report as well, that he had encountered an aggressive dog pack posted the morning after the llama's deaths. So that's something that you're looking into as well. Sheila Allgaier, Dan Crompton, Tom Langford, Mary Kay, again reminding people to put collars and tags on their dogs, cats in case they get out earlier, it makes it easier to return. And then Janice Scott and Jarena Falkworth. Thank you guys so much for watching today. Talk to me about what you described on Facebook last night, which I thought was really interesting, and I shared this with Ozzy too, and I'm sure he saw it because he's being bombarded with information too.
That was so long ago. That
Yeah.
was like 8 days ago.
So tell me about the difference between the way dogs hunt and the way coyotes hunt, because this is fascinating to me.
Sure. Well, your
I'm not a
basic
hunter,
thing
so-
is coyotes are a little bit more sly than dogs. Dogs
Yeah.
are going to be a little sloppier, a little messier, a little louder. Coyotes, they are natural hunters, so they're going to be more stealthy
Sure.
and more deliberate about
Makes
what
sense.
they do. So I think I hate to use the word crime scene, but the scene of any attack is going to look a little bit different than a dog or a coyote.
Yeah, and one of the things that really important piece mentioned that you posted was the fact that these animals, unfortunately, were killed in their barn, and that's heartbreaking to think that it's kind of like a home
It is.
invasion,
It is.
to
It
an
is.
animal. It's killed in their barn, and then the two that escaped were killed in the yard outside. And so there was debris, there was skin, and there was fur, hair in various places around the property, and it was discovered after a large chaotic barking took place that was observed by many people, neighbors. Several neighbors heard it, and I think that one of the things that has concerned me the most is if, and Ozzy just said, they're going to be looking for these dogs. If these dogs are running as a pack, I know my 3 dogs behave differently when they're together than they do separately. So if these 3 dogs are owned by different people, or if they just happen to be together that moment, that may not present the kind of terrifying scene that everybody's talking about. It may have been a one-time scenario. So I just think that the most important thing today, and the reason I wanted to have this conversation with you guys, is to tamp down this massive amount of speculation that's going on on social media, which is your worst nightmare, Ozzy. I know, because we just experienced this with the 200 calls for frozen dogs that may have not been frozen and may have not been out for more than 5 minutes to go to the bathroom.
I don't think people are going to find an answer, and I know that there's so much pressure on you to find an answer, but I just don't think, unless you end up finding the culprit who did it, I think everybody needs to use common sense and be on guard for dogs or coyotes. I personally feel a little bit more worried about dogs, but that might be because I'm more familiar with wildlife in general.
See, that's funny. She says she knows more about coyotes than she does about dogs. You know a lot about dogs. I don't know the difference, obviously, since I chased one with a leash.
Well, you know, there again, as I said earlier, the reason we put it out, that's all we had. And I just believe if we know something, we have to be able to put it out there.
And I think you did.
And I know everybody's got their own opinion on this or that, and that's great. But I would feel bad that if I hadn't put that out and something happened.
Right.
Because that's not the right thing to do. So as we get information, we're going to pass it on. And then when you talk about catching the culprits, it's one thing if three human beings go do something. At some point, one of them's going to run their mouth.
Right.
We're not going to have that here.
Yeah, you know that from being a police officer.
I know that from being a policeman.
Right.
So
yeah.
I'm looking for 3 dogs running stray. Okay, so we'll do the best we can to constantly work on it, and it's just an unbelievable tragedy, and I feel so bad for those people of having to go through this. That we just need. One thing I would ask is that everybody needs to give them their space and their time to heal right now, because I know they are probably getting bombarded a lot too. I talked to the owner, and they need closure with this, and let them move on. And we will, as we get information, we'll continue to keep everybody updated. But they need their time to let this sink in, because that was a tragedy.
Well, and losing 5 and then losing a 6th and then having to euthanize 2 more the next day, which was last night, and then having to bury the animals.
That is traumatizing on someone.
Horribly traumatizing.
I feel awful for them.
So when and this is another thing too, we all use this with people in public safety. See something, say something.
Yes.
I'm the captain of my block watch. Every block watch officer with the Louisville Police Department says that. Ozzy, I've heard you say it a million times. If you see something that's out of the ordinary, if it just makes you tickle the wrong way, if it sets the hair on the back of your neck off, just say something about it. And that's one of the greatest gifts that we can give to Louisville Metro Animal Services, especially in a case like this, because somebody's got to have information.
Yes.
And they just need to give it. And they also need to be aware of the fact that, there are going to be consequences, but would they also want to be responsible for, if they did own a dog that had killed an animal, would they want to be responsible for them doing it again?
Yeah. As you and I talked earlier, probably what we need to move to is just like the police do, is that, man, if you have information and it's not an emergency, we probably need to use 574 LMPD.
I think so too.
And there again, if what you're calling about is especially in this situation, that I would expect if a citizen come upon what they thought were either coyotes or 3 dogs that have done something, you feel threatened, you need to call 911.
Yeah.
Because
that's what it's there for.
They have proven that what they can do. So, you got 574 LMPD. If you have information of, hey, we think we know this, that way it's a good way of, they are very, very structured about getting the information and processing it and getting it to the right city agency. And then again, if it's an emergency, then you would want to call 911. As we've talked, we have our own dispatchers. I got one person answering the phone. That's not the best scenario. So if something is happening that is so egregious, you need to always call 911.
Okay, so you're probably going to kick my butt when I say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. You can sit back and relax and monitor the 2 of us. But
Okay.
Ozzy, you and I have talked a million times about how terrible it is to have Metro Animal Services dispatching its own officers as opposed to going through a 311 or a 911, where there are a number of people who could be doing this. And I think it's totally unfair to the department, to the Louisville Metro Animal Services department, that you have to call and leave a message to be able to report something. Because my God, if you see a coyote and you're leaving a message and it takes an hour or 2 for the operator to get back to you, what good is it? I would call, and I tell people to call LMPD.
Well,
574 LMPD.
Our phone message, if you listen to it and you think it's an emergency, we don't want you to call us.
Right.
Now, the only thing I'm going to tell you is there again, when I took over, I knew that was a mess. Okay.
Yes.
And
you've been working to fix it.
Yeah, you couldn't even leave a message.
Right.
So I'm like, how in the world are we going to ever know anything if you can't leave a message?
Right.
So we actually spent a lot of time calling other shelters. You can't get a hold of nobody in any city that runs an animal shelter. All their messages tell you, if this is an emergency, call their Metro Safe or whatever it is, and then they walk you through a phone tree. And all of that is due to staffing.
Absolutely.
And when I don't care what you say, when you look at the pecking order of how things happen, we're not at the top of the food chain here.
No,
We're just not.
Yeah.
We're not. I mean, there has to be a hierarchy in life, and it's humans and then animals, and that's just the way it is. So I'm sorry. I know there's people that don't like that, but that's the matter of fact. So what we found is when we were calling Indy, Nashville, you got run through a phone tree.
Which is ridiculous.
It is, but I can tell you this. If I had to answer all the phone calls we have and the messages, because here's what happens. Every pet that we have up for adoption, people want to call and ask questions. There's hundreds a day.
I can imagine that.
And that's why we use the email system for pet adoptions, that you need emails, because there's no way we could get to them all.
Right.
So I have somebody come in every day
right.
before they start their shift, and they just go through emails of people inquiring about pets.
Right.
And at the end of the day, we got to do it again to stay on top of it.
Well, and I know one thing you've implemented, which has been very successful, is one person dedicated to reuniting dogs that are lost with their families, which also opens up space at the shelter for other dogs.
Yes. We have, since I've been here, we've designated a lot. We've designated that spot. We've created a rescue coordinator so that, because when I got there was 4 or 5 people dealing with rescue groups. So I got one person now that can handle all of that and arrange for transports and stuff like that. So, and there again, many thanks to the ASPCA, because those 2 positions were grant funded,
right.
and we've been able to carry that on because of how valuable they are.
Right.
When it comes to life saving and moving animals, and as you and I talked about, the importance to not euthanizing is having empty kennels.
Right.
And the more empty kennels I have, the better we're going to be.
Well, we're just talking about the sadness of the way that we treat our property in Kentucky, because animals are property. Joy Estes just sent me a note that says Senate Bill 12, which I think is the hot car bill. Am I right about that? And Senate Bill 67, the bestiality bill, have both passed the Senate. So she's down there. I know that Catherine Callahan from HSUS has been working very hard on those bills. Mm-hmm. They're in the gallery of the Senate right now, and so that is a big move, because we are one of 5 states that still does not specifically outlaw bestiality, and this just passed the Senate, so now we have to go to the House. But those are good moves. Mm-hmm. and the hot car bill, because I know that you probably deal with that a lot too.
We get a lot of that.
Yeah.
That's come up. I mean, there's a lot of legislation down there right now.
Yes,
there's
there
a couple
is.
other bills. There's I think House Bill 224.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be that's out there. If you're a rescue group, you probably need to pay attention to that.
More regulation, basically.
Yes, it is.
Extreme regulation.
Has a lot of regulation, and
Yep.
then I think there's like House Bill 200 and 201 that are out there with some other things about training for animal control officers. So
Right.
a lot going on right now in Frankfurt. So we'll see what comes out
I
of
would
there.
like to see. I would like to see everybody become more aware, and I think that's one of the reasons that I do Wagon Wednesdays, because I want people to be aware of animal issues. I also want to give you a chance, because I know you've got to go. You've got a big event.
I have to educate.
You have to educate people about wildlife. But
That's right.
tell us how to respond should we come upon a sick or injured animal that is not in the domestic population of cats and dogs and domesticated bunny rabbits. You guys are one of the calls that people can make. What should we do?
Absolutely.
What's the step?
Please go to our website first. secondchanceswildlife.org. There's a whole page on there, species specific, on whether or not the animal does need help. If you think it needs help after looking at our website, then please call us. And our phone number's on our website.
It's like
as well.
the people
Can
who
I make-
report the
can I make-
dogs.
Can I make fun of something?
Yeah, go
So
ahead.
you don't want everybody calling you all the time, do you?
Oh gosh, are you kidding? No, I felt
That's what
your
I
pain
thought.
when you were talking about that. No, and the reason is, it
Yeah.
is me that answers every call.
Right.
And I'm also training volunteers. I am taking animals to the vet.
Yep.
I am taking care of all the animals that we have.
The medical,
Yes. And I try to get back with everybody.
Right.
You know, if a bird falls out of the nest, please, for the love of God, just put it back in the nest. You know, there are
Right.
certain simple things. Leave the rabbits alone. Leave the deer alone. It's all on our website.
Yeah, if you find a baby deer, chances are the mother has gone off to forage and is going to come back. I had a golf call. You remember this call? Guy calls me. He's playing golf. He says, "There's a fawn lying in the middle of the 7th fairway at Persimmon Ridge. What do I do?" And I called her, and she goes, "Leave it alone." And 10 minutes later, the mother came out of the woods, got the fawn, and off it staggered. You know, it was like brand new. It must have just dropped. But those are things that this page is going to tell you, that you don't have to go crazy and, you know, try to rescue every animal. And I had a friend who picked up every frickin' bird that fell out of a nest and fed it cat food and tried to save it, and then it died. You know, I'm like, just put it back in the nest. Just leave it alone.
Yes, and they can't bring it inside either. It is illegal. It doesn't matter how cute and tiny the rabbit is or squirrel is. It is illegal, and that poses all sorts of problems with possible diseases,
You
animals
can come back.
biting the people. So definitely, we're always happy to help. But if you can't reach us for some reason, there's other licensed rehabilitators. You can find the list on Fish and Wildlife. But probably 75% of our phone calls can either be reunited with their parents or their kidnapped situations. And if an animal is being kidnapped and brought to us, and you know it's past the point of returning it, that's taking up cage space of animals that really do need us.
Yeah, you guys have the same problem. You really do. One of the most important things I think you should know is what happens with a sick or injured animal that, let's say a deer gets hit, or a fawn, you know, is caught in some sort of a clothesline or whatever. I'm just thinking of examples. But what would you come and actually get the animal, or are we responsible for bringing it to you?
Every situation is so unique.
Okay.
It really depends on the situation. I just had an awesome 15-year-old boy rescue an adult skunk from the middle of the road and brought it to us.
Wow.
Followed my directions to a T.
Did he get sprayed?
He did not get sprayed. And I just released
Congrats.
that adult skunk back in the wild. So
That's pretty amazing.
Yes.
Yeah, Dr. Gailor's holding his nose at this moment. Do you have to go?
I do. I have to teach a class.
Let me have the
yes.
mic. Go.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Love you. Appreciate you so much for the
Yes,
time.
ma'am. Thank you.
All right, Ozzy, we're losing people.
All
We're
right.
losing people rapidly, but you're here now, and you have to. Hey, Dr. Gailor, we're still on the air.
Yes, ma'am.
So if you want to come over and join us, you can.
Sure, I'm just going to show.
Okay, but just remember that we're still on the air.
I'm just
Don't
Watch
say
what you're
anything
showing.
bad.
He needs to be my new best friend. I love
He is your new best friend. He is.
I was just going to show a couple years ago. I rescued a albino red-tailed hawk,
Wow, that's pretty cool.
and it had lead poisoning.
Oh,
And
wow.
we took it to and
Come here.
it's not able to be released,
Move over
but it's
here.
now their poster child. It was on their Christmas cards.
That is
and,
awesome.
That's a cool
yeah,
story.
she's been to the fair the last couple of years with their booth. So
Cool.
yeah, but it was a crazy situation. This hawk, we had seen it. It was on the Knob Creek Road area, and folks had seen it for years.
Wow.
And all of a sudden, I got a call saying, "Hey, this hawk's caught on something. It's caught in the woods." And so it wasn't caught; it was just disoriented. And so we scooped it up and took it, and we were able to treat it and get it back. So that's great.
Will you center our shot just a little bit there, since you're already here? Don't move the camera. Just use the handle. See the handle sticking out there? Just turn it a tiny little bit. There you go. Perfect.
do it?
Hey, I think it's. Can you see it on the camera?
Oh, look at you all. You're in the middle now.
Isn't that perfect?
Yes,
You're
you can hire
excellent.
me part-time.
Brigitte, not only a fabulous raptor rehab and Bunny and everybody else, second chances wildlife rescuer, but a great photographer as well. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks for coming in. So we kind of threw this together at the last minute, obviously, based upon the news of the day. And the news of the day has been that we had a very, very serious loss of life with the Louisville Llama farm, and by an unknown predator at this point. Ozzie Gibson from Louisville Metro Animal Services, Dr. Rusty Gailor from Gailor Animal Clinic, and also Brigitte Brouillard, who just left us because she has to go and do some more education, graciously agreed to spend an hour with us to talk about what it is that could have happened, and without speculating, what we can do to protect ourselves from whatever it was that happened. So give us a real quick rundown for the benefit of those who just are tuning in, Ozzie. What happened, what you've done, and where you are right now in the investigation, please.
Well, I mean, unfortunately, obviously,
Okay.
numerous llamas were tragically killed. You know, when we respond out there, the first thing we're going to do obviously is because, whatever did it's left the scene. So obviously my guys start ruling out, because the first thing you start hearing, it's a big cat, cougar, something. No big cougar tracks, okay? They're all canine
Nothing
tracks.
missing from the zoo.
Nothing missing. We call the zoo. Nothing missing from the zoo. No cougar tracks. All tracks are canine in nature. And, evidently they had their vet on scene, and the information was that the bite resembled canine. Okay, that doesn't mean dog. That means canine in general, which could be coyote,
wolf.
anything. Okay, so at that point we know that no big cat, Bigfoot wasn't out there, nothing like that. So
no chupacabras, as
exactly
was postulated.
So the best we can do is start a neighborhood canvass.
Yes.
Going door to door. Did you hear anything? Did you see anything? Okay, so we start doing that, and then the information last night was that numerous people, including the zoo, their first reaction was, "Man, we've seen coyotes out there." Okay, well, nobody saw a coyote attack nothing. That's just what
Hey, I'm sorry.
presented itself.
Listen to this one, and he really wants to.
Well, I'll take that. You're live, just so you know if you'd like to get on here.
Yeah, it's okay. Good
Yes,
job.
you are.
No problem. No problem.
We like people in this chair.
Please continue.
That was pretty cool.
That was
wasn't
funny.
it? That was good. You're live here, just so you know. So after doing all that, there was no information provided us that night that there was any packs of dogs.
Right.
Only single dogs.
Okay.
Running. Yeah, I've seen a stray dog here. Or, yeah, I heard something. So we didn't have. That's all we had.
Right.
So obviously, everybody's up in arms immediately. So I had to make a decision the very next morning, since that's all we had. Where are we going with this?
Right.
What are we doing?
Right.
And I felt that since that everything that come in, I need to just put everybody on notice that, hey, here's what we heard. I'm not saying
Also
that
based
the coyotes
upon the
did it.
fact that you had a report, you said,
Yes.
that people don't know about and didn't know about until you made this announcement. So tell them about that.
Very short time frame here. Within probably just last week, we had a complaint come to us in the mayor's office that they've seen coyotes in Cherokee Park, and there was one that a lady felt was going to come after her dog. So even if this incident would not have happened, you would have saw on our Facebook this week exactly what I sent out.
Right. Something about coyotes and
Yes,
mating season.
it's
and
mating season.
be
We see this
careful.
every year. So you would have saw this week. Now it's just unfortunate that it come at the timing of all this. So
Yes.
we put it out there, and there again, we did not say that we believe coyotes did it. We just said this is the
You
information
don't know.
we gathered. We don't know.
You didn't know what did it.
So now, we have more information that we're going to continue to follow up.
Right.
We're going to continue to ride that area hard. I've asked LMPD to help out and ride that area too. And should they see something, please get us that information.
And the latest reports that you brought up at the beginning of the show when you came in are?
We are looking for possibly 3 dogs running together. We're looking for a small dog, a middle-sized dog mix, and a shepherd mix. So that's kind of what we're looking at. And there again, what do I figure is that we normally don't see more than 2 dogs running loose at the same time.
Right.
When we pick up strays and somebody says, hey, they've been running in the neighborhood and they've been here for weeks, I don't recall where we've seen 3.
It's a couple.
Yes. So that leads me to believe that these dogs probably live somewhere close and have gotten out. So I guess the true question now that we need to know from citizens that live in there, who do you know that has 3 dogs?
That's a tough one.
So if you know somebody's got 3 dogs in that area that fit that description, we'd like to know about it.
Well, and I think this is where we start to get into, to pain and to trouble too, is
Sure.
Are we ratting out our neighbors?
Well,
And the answer might be yes.
it just depends. I mean, you got to do the right thing, and these poor people, these were, not just their farm animals, but they were very attached to them.
Yep.
And then you got a monetary that they're out of. I don't know whether they raise them and sell them or not, but it's an unfortunate predicament. So, it's kind of like you said. We ask people to be able to have their animals on a leash or corral some way that's legal, whether they're on a trolley or they're in a kennel, and to know where they're at all times. So somebody might have 3 dogs in that area, or they may be in a whole other neighborhood. That's what we're not going to know that for a while. So we just have to
see something, say something.
Yeah, keep working.
If you know someone who has a couple or 3 dogs, or if you know that they run loose in the neighborhood, it would be very much appreciated if you would call and let them know. And we're no longer telling you, based upon my personal feelings about the situation, to call LMAS directly. We're asking you to call 574-LMPD, which is Louisville Metro Police Department.
Yeah, I think in this situation, this doesn't happen, and hopefully it never happens again. But this has risen to the nature, and our concern, and the reason we want to use 574-LMPD is because we can't have this happening again.
No.
Okay, so whether it happens to llamas or these dogs were to get in somebody else's yard, we don't know what the issue is with them, and we just want to make sure that this doesn't happen again.
Yeah, 574-LMPD is the number that we're asking you to call if you have any reports of dogs, of coyotes, of anything out of the ordinary, things that might make you uncomfortable, things that might make you feel there is a clear and present danger. And Louisville Metro Animal Services and LMPD are going to be working closely together in a, God willing, an attempt to resolve this situation. In the event that the situation continues, we're just going to have to go on with our lives, and it's not going to be able to eat up all our social media time. So my personal preference is that we not speculate. And I see it all the time, and I literally take those comments off my Facebook string. I don't want people speculating.
And that's
about anything.
That's the bad part governments are in. Whether you're at the police department or you're here, everybody wants you to talk immediately, because and we hear it all the time. I pay your taxes. I want to know my taxes pays for you to do your job. So they want to know what happened. So a lot of times we speculate.
Right.
And I didn't want bad information coming out the night it happened. So we gather what little we have, and we believe the right thing to do is to serve that up.
So at this point, you have animal control officers in the neighborhood of where the llamas lived.
They will be making their runs from there. Obviously they're going to get dispatched because every night we're very, very busy.
Right.
Especially when the rain comes.
And LMPD is also going to be.
Yeah, they're going to be very busy. But we are going to try to be as visible in that neighborhood as we can be.
Right.
With the resources we have, and then when we get leads, we'll follow up and call people and see what they know and try to kind of piece this together. But the damage has been done, and we just want to make sure that we follow up on everything, because we don't want this to happen again something else.
We don't. Ozzie Gibson, we thank Bridgette Brouillard also from Second Chances. We thank Dr. Rusty Gailor, who's downstairs serving his patients. Thanks for letting us use his beautiful upstairs conference room, which was very nice of him. Surrounded, if you noticed, by UK basketballs signed by various coaches. Yeah. So he's a big UK fan. That's what I meant. We're down south in the city. We're getting a little bit closer to the outskirts. If you see something, say something. 574-LMPD. And Ozzie, throw out some of the things that you always like to say as I go over there and turn the camera off about Louisville Metro Animal Services and what we as citizens can do to make your job easier.
There again, to make my job easier is try to give us the most accurate information you can. Again, like you said, don't speculate. If you see something, say something, but observe it for a minute before you just call, especially when it's dogs outside. And then just, I tell everybody this: give us, I'm not going to say give us a break, but try to understand that we just can't solve everything like something like this overnight. It's just not going to happen. We just have to walk through all the leads we have and kind of work through it like that.
Tags, collars, chips.
Yes,
shots.
Please. Always,
spay and neuter.
Always try to get a dog microchipped. We can't get it back if you don't microchip it. We can't get it back if you don't license it. And we run into things all the time where people get upset because they come in on that 7th or 8th day and say, I think you had my dog. And I'm like, we've adopted it out already. You have 5 days to come in and pick up a dog. And for cats, it's 0. It's 0 days unless it has an identifier. So if your cat gets out and it doesn't have a microchip and it doesn't have a collar, I don't have to hold it 5 days.
Wow, that's amazing.
So people need to understand that.
That's amazing. Thank you, Ozzie. We appreciate you so very much for Appreciate all of you for watching. Remember, see something, say something. Don't speculate. Let's try to get to the bottom of this. And in the most case, let's try to be very safe and keep our children and our small animals safe in the neighborhoods where other predators could be on the loose, whether they are coyotes, dogs, or the greatest predator of all, humans.